بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وقائدنا وقدوتنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to day 21 of 28 in our Ramadan series on the book ثلاثون سببا للسعادة, or 30 means of acquiring happiness. Today, inshallah, we'll be discussing means number 23, and this is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, or Allah is sufficient for us, and what a wonderful agent He is. So, what does this mean? This is, first of all, this is part of a verse of the Quran, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. And this should be a part of our vocabulary as well, actually. So whenever, life pushes you in a direction where you feel like you don't have many options, or there is no, you are stuck between what in English we would say a rock and a hard place, then this is what should automatically come onto your tongue. This is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Whenever you see something that displeases you and that you have no immediate control over changing, right? So let's say that you see something take place that is unjust, that should not happen, but you don't have any influence or control over changing that. So what do you say? You say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, that Allah is sufficient for us and He is the best agent. If you see somebody wronging someone else and there's nothing that you can do to prevent this or to stop this or to change this, then you say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. So memorize this and understand what it means. And this is a very important part of our vocabulary. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. What this means is placing one's trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, we talked about this in the discussion on qadr and destiny, that the human being, when Allah created us and put us into this world, we were sent here with a finite, limited amount of free will. Finite and limited. And this means that despite how much control you think you have over your life and your circumstances, the reality is that you don't actually have that much control. You don't actually, and again, this is not to make you, depressed about your circumstances, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't actually have that much control over your circumstances and your surroundings and the things that are happening around you. Rather, that you are at the mercy of so many different things and so many different circumstances, and ultimately the qadr and the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why it's important to reflect on the concept of tawakkul, and this is what is being discussed as this 23rd means of acquiring happiness. This is placing one's trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who ultimately controls the affairs of His creation, and He is the best of planners. So a few points to reflect over here to help us better understand this. Number one, in order to properly and completely and accurately grasp the concept of tawakkul, we have to reiterate, refocus, and educate ourselves regarding one ultimate reality that is a part of our iman and our belief, but it bears repeating. وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and reiterate and continue to remind, because reminders are beneficial for the believing people. What is this concept or this belief? This belief is that Allah and Allah alone is the ultimate sovereign, that He controls the universe. You and I, we are but small, insignificant pieces in this grand creation of Allah that is the universe. And when sovereignty belongs ultimately to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so does the relationship between cause and effect. So does the wisdom behind the happenings of this world, many of which you and I, we don't have access to, or we don't comprehend, we don't understand. And my brothers and sisters, when you understand that Allah is the ultimate sovereign, and He does with His creation as He wishes, this is a little bit of a detour, but it's important, that many of the isms that you and I, we see in the world around us, right? Sometimes we just broadly call them liberalism, but this encompasses many different kinds of movements from both the right and the left. And one fundamental problem for believing people, for Muslims, in adopting any of these ideologies, is that they are not compatible with Islam, in the fact that all of them, without exception, they place sovereignty in the hands of the creation and not the creator. There was a famous slogan, I'll use this as an example, albeit it is a little bit of a controversial one. But recently, in a Muslim country, there was a slogan. I won't repeat the actual slogan, but basically what it meant is "My body, my rules," right? My body, my rules, or it came out of the feminist movement. But so now this is literally a verbalization or a vocalization of a very dangerous belief. And the dangerous belief is what? That this is at odds with the belief of a believing person. It is not my body, my rules. It's not your body, your rules. That we believe as part of our belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sovereign over His creation, and that includes your body and that includes mine. The human being is not the ultimate agent, and he does not decide, and she does not decide how to utilize this creation of Allah. There are rules, there are laws in place, and these laws, they transcend any state or any government that exists in this world. And these are the laws of Allah. And they dictate what is and what is not permissible when it comes to our physical person and the world around us. So my brothers and sisters, especially for our young people, sometimes because of the mass appeal of some of these ideologies, sometimes even naively, some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, they are sort of swept up in these ideas, and they fail to realize, because no one educated them about this, that they are at odds with some fundamental principles when it comes to our beliefs. So when it comes to tawakkul, the first step in understanding tawakkul is that sovereignty belongs only and exclusively to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, the concept of tawakkul, we must understand that this is a balance between effort and trust. So tawakkul is not blind. Tawakkul is not trust in Allah at the expense of your effort, right? So this is not what tawakkul is. Tawakkul is not that you sit inside your home and you don't make an effort, and you wish to see results without actually undertaking the effort necessary to see these results. That's not what tawakkul is. Tawakkul is that, as they say, you tie your camel and then you trust. Not as they say. This is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that tie your camel and then trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What this means is that you take the necessary means and to achieve an end, and then the result you leave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not abstinence from means, rather it is utilizing the means but recognizing that the achieving the intended result is up to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3 is cultivating, and we've mentioned this time and again throughout Ramadan, so you should be familiar with this concept, that cultivating a habit of patience and perseverance. Many of us, our tawakkul is very weak when it comes to, we will take the means necessary to acquire and achieve something, and then we will put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's almost as if, na'udhu billah, we're putting Allah on a timeline. That okay, I expect this to happen by this time, and no later than that. So I have undertaken the means to achieve something, and I have placed my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's it must happen by this date. So you realize that Allah doesn't work on your timeline. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives when He sees fit in His infinite wisdom and His mercy and His fadl and His plan is perfect. So cultivating an attitude of patience and perseverance, this is also important when we talk about tawakkul. Strengthening our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wisdom in His plans. So sometimes you and I, we don't understand the wisdom behind the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is okay. It is not a requirement of your belief to understand the wisdom behind the plan of Allah, or even the obligation and the legislation of Allah. That's not a requirement of belief. It's not a requirement for one to understand why something is an obligation or why something must be the way it is. It is a requirement of belief to understand or to believe that there is a wisdom, but it's not a requirement of belief to understand what the wisdom is. Now, tawakkul, feeling anxious about something, right? Feeling anxious about something is not necessarily against the concept of tawakkul and placing your trust in Allah. So, placing your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believing that Allah will that you have taken some steps necessary to achieve your desired outcome, and you have placed your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This doesn't always mean that immediately all of your anxiety and all of your worries and fears, they will just magically disappear. We are human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in this manner, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in a manner that we worry and we feel anxious and fearful of things. And along with tawakkul, it's also important to seek the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to overcome these worries, these fears, and these anxieties. And my brothers and sisters, sometimes the last part of this, the concept of tawakkul that I will mention, is you take certain means, desiring certain outcomes, and then place your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then whatever it is that you desired as an outcome doesn't materialize. So let's say that you wanted to do something, you took the means necessary to achieve whatever it is that you wanted to do, and then that thing didn't end up happening. This should not be a cause for one to lose faith. And this is not, this is the whole concept of tawakkul, is that you leave the result up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are content with whether the result is what you desired or whether it's not the result that you desired. That is what tawakkul is. It's not that you are only happy when the result is what you desired. That's, it's, you are happy with it either way. You are content with it either way, and the result is left only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And regardless of whether this is the result that you intended, that you anticipated, that you wanted, or it's not. So that is what tawakkul means. And I will reiterate at the end over here that the 23rd means of acquiring happiness, as the Shaykh put it, is hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, that Allah is sufficient for us and Allah is the best of agents. So this should be a part of your vocabulary. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, that Allah is sufficient for us and Allah is the best of agents. Allah is the best representative, right? So any times that you come across a circumstance that you have no influence or control over, and you dislike this, then what should be your automatic response to this? You should say, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. That Allah is sufficient for us and Allah is the best representative. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to cultivate and to become people of tawakkul, to become mutawakkilin, and to strengthen this tawakkul inside our hearts and in our lives. And this, my brothers and sisters, was lesson number 21 of 28 in the book ثلاثون سببا للسعادة, and this was means number 23 actually. So this is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. We have about 7 lessons to go inshallah until the 28th of Ramadan. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to make the most of these remaining days of the month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to practice upon what we have learned until today. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to live our lives and grant us sa'adah in this world and in the akhirah. Jazakumullah khairan wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.